Hello again, and welcome to the 5th episode of Your Fave Film Critic, the podcast starring and hosted by me, Dom Griffin. I hope I'm your favorite film critic. If I'm not, I'm going to ask you to leave me very detailed notes about who is better than me and what things I have to do to best them in hand-to-hand combat, or, I don't know, some sort of like skills testing or something. I mean, I'll fight fucking Richard Brody, man. I'll box him. I'll do it. So anyway, happy that you guys are here. Happy that we made it to the 5th episode. I gotta be honest, when I started this, I'm a little bit shocked that we made it to 5 episodes, like 5 in a row. Obviously, I haven't had any new uploads in the channel in a minute, and we're gonna fix that this week. I think I have this week, definitely there's gonna be a new video out. So thank you for being patient on that front, but I'm personally loving doing the pod, and it seems like from the feedback I've been getting that you do too. So thank you. Today's episode is dedicated to the loving memory of William Friedkin, one of the greatest American filmmakers of all time, who left us this week. And as such, like, I watched a bunch of Friedkin I watched like 4 Friedkin things, not a bunch, but I that's kind of going to eat up a lot of the what I've been watching part of the episode. And I have a couple of like really good questions for the Q&A part. What I do not have is very many strong thoughts about anything happening in the news, like at all. This week I have not been particularly dialed into the news. Like, I went and was just like searching through my feeds to see if anything of note or interest happened, and I was like, nah, I don't really care about any of this. I mean, I know some other famous people have died in the past. Like, I know Sinead O'Connor died, Pee Wee Herman died. I don't have a big, super strong connection to Pee Wee Herman, so I didn't really have, Paul Rubin, sorry. I'm calling him by his like fictional name, like a dick, so. But no, I never had like a crazy real thing for him like that, so I didn't get into it like that. And I feel like somebody else, the guy that voiced like Dale on King of the Hill died today, I think. Celebrity deaths are always sad, but the Friedkin dying, I'll get into it when we talk about him later. Like, the bulk of this episode is going to be about Billy Friedkin and the films of his that I revisited and stuff like that. So I have one news item I want to talk about. It's not really real news, so I guess bear with me, but it's just I want to talk about it. I'm sorry. So this past week I haven't been I've been online a lot. Like, anyone that knows me knows I live there. But I just haven't been like paying attention to a lot of bigger things that have been happening as much as I maybe should. Or I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, who cares, right? But there's this meme thing. Everyone that knows me knows I love memes, and I love weird internet humor and stuff like that. It's like a weird thing to say I like memes. Like, everyone sends each other memes in the modern world. It's not like a special thing, but I personally take it kind of seriously and stuff. Like, the joking, there's a meme about it, but like the friend that you send a meme and like he's already seen it because he sees all of them. Like, that's basically me. I have a handful of friends that send me like really, really good stuff. If you're listening to this, it's you. But otherwise, like, I'm always like, yeah, I know I saw that. I never tell somebody I saw that because it's just rude. But like I live here on the internet. Of course I've seen this shit. But I guess we'll just call it like the Euro dance meme. Okay, so sometime a week or 2 ago, I believe, there's this TikTok comedian. I think his name's Kyle Gordon. I have followed him on TikTok for a while, and I thought he was a pretty, like, a funny enough guy. And I think a lot of TikTok comedians have this thing where they do like characters more than they do like material. And a lot of the characters are very irritating, or very off-putting, or very specifically strange and uncomfortable, like sort of like a evolution of like cringe comedy or whatever. And the downside of that is a lot of times they're unknown outside of these characters they develop. So it's like, you don't know if they're funny or if they're also just weird and filming it. Sometimes you follow people on TikTok and like they have like an elaborate character that they do and it's a bit, and some people know it's a bit and some people don't know it's a bit. And if you don't know it's a bit, sometimes you're like, that person just gives me hives. And then if you do know it's a bit, sometimes, like, even then it's still kind of like a thin bit. Like, there's that guy, I do not commit TikTok people's names to memory, so I hope my colorful descriptions of them will make you go, oh, that guy. There's this guy who is really good at doing like the kind of creepy older guy who dates younger women character, and he's like just a very uncomfortable sort of like he a lot of his gags are like him being uncomfortable in customer service situations, like the weird guy that has to speak to the manager and stuff like that. But all of his characters are all variations on the same handful of ticks that make you feel like insect revulsion, like you feel like there's like a fly in your ear or on your skin. And it's funny the first couple of times, but then like these people make so many skits, like you have to get noticed in the modern media economy or whatever. But it just gets to a point that you're like, oh my god. So anyway, long setup. Kyle Gordon to me was, oh, man, I'm just realizing I don't know if that's his name, and I'm not going to look it up, but I think his name's Kyle Gordon. This is going to be a running thing on the podcast that, like, if I forget to put something specific in my notes, I'm not going to Google it while we're doing this. So I'll put it in the show notes or something. I have seen some of his sketches and they're pretty funny. He has like one recently that's like him and another guy, and it's like they're talking about like in urban cities, like how the cool district always used to be like a meatpacking plant or some kind of factory, and it's them doing the guys that tell you about the history of the factory at the beer garden you're at or whatever, and it's like very specific and accurate and like kind of funny. But none of his stuff has ever really like popped off. I think the one bit he's ever done that I think is really funny is he does like every white music critic talking about rap, and everyone thinks it's like specifically an Anthony Fantano dig, but it's not. It's like if you've read any amount of rap criticism of the last like 20 or not 20, maybe it's a little bit, the last like 10 years, he skewers it like so effortlessly to the point that it's actually like equally as frustrating as reading bad rap criticism from white dudes. So it's one of those things again where it's like, this is funny that you're skewering this, but you're so close to it that makes me uncomfortable. But a couple of weeks ago, sorry for the long build up, he had a hit. He had a like viral hit, like a thing that weirdly I think went more viral on Twitter or X, whatever, than it did. I'm not gonna fucking call it X, than it did on TikTok. And it's basically a video of him and this other woman. I don't know who she really is. I don't keep up with like the names of like internet influencer type people, but she's probably got her own following or whatever. And it's him and her, and they're basically doing like a parody of 90s like Eurodance pop stuff that would come from overseas here and like be really popular and like, you know, in clubs and stuff. And it's like what, I don't know, like a 30-second, 45-second video or whatever. And he's like he has this alternate persona, DJ Crazy Times, and he has like weird like jet set radio glasses and funny dance moves, and all the lyrics are like in English but they don't make sense, like the syntax is all wrong. And it is this bite-sized piece of like comedic perfection. Like it captures those songs and their vibe and their aura so well. It's so impressive. And like the first few rounds of it going around, I thought every time I'd see it, I'd stop and watch it a few times, and like I had it stuck in my head. You know, there's already all these really funny lyrics like "Women are my favorite guy" and all this different stuff. Like it's just very funny. It's a funny little thing. It's nice. I was like, you know what? Kudos for Kyle. He finally found something that got him out of like his usual sphere or whatever. And I was like, that's cool. I like when people blow up or whatever, as long as we don't find out they're like racist in like 12 hours. And I don't think we have. I think he's safe so far. But he did something that to a lot of the people that follow him is worse than being racist. They have been teasing the actual like full release of the song on like streaming platforms and stuff. And I've talked about this to my friends before. I don't think I've ever talked about it like publicly, but I don't fucking understand modern music releasing. Like I understand like albums and stuff, but like when it comes to like new up and coming artists on TikTok who have new songs, the things they have to do to like sell the song, I don't fucking get it. Like I'll be on TikTok and I'll hear like a song that I think is cool, and then I'll look to go find that person on Apple Music or something, and it'll be like, oh, this is unreleased. And people in the comments like, oh my god, when is it going to be finished? When are you going to put this out? And it'll be like, soon. And then like 8 months later, they'll finally put the song out. And it's like, why didn't you just put it out sooner when there was like a demand for it? Now, I mean, again, I don't fucking know how this stuff works. So maybe that's a really silly question, but like a lot of times it just baffles me. Like I'll see an artist I like, I'll see a song I dig, and I just have to save it. And then periodically I'll check my saved music on TikTok to see if those songs ever came out. Sometimes a bunch of them all come out at once, and it's kind of fun. But other times I'm just like baffled, where I'm like, is this done? If you finish this fucking song, what is stopping you from just putting it out? But I mean, I guess there's all the like stuff you have to sign with the DSPs. Okay, it makes more sense now. Anyway, sorry. This guy has the full version of the Eurodance song coming out, and to promote it, he released another cut of the video, but it's the same snippet of the song, but the girl from the first video has been replaced by like a brunette. And again, I think she's probably from some other, she probably has her own TikTok following. I still don't know who she is. And people got so fucking mad on Twitter. They were like losing their fucking shit at this guy. Because everyone was like, why does this guy think he was the focal point? We all liked it for the other girl. I think her name was like Bijana something or whatever, or like her character name. And like she is actually probably the best thing in the video. Like her facial expressions and animation stuff is all like really, it's there's an earnestness that I think her performance captures that is like correct for what they're skewering. And the new version is like so much worse. So much worse, in fact, that it is obviously on purpose. And it is, I think, pretty obviously supposed to be like a follow-up parody about the fact that a lot of those Eurodance groups would have like multiple cuts of music videos, or they'd put out a second video and the members of the group would be different. And then the people that were lip-syncing the videos weren't even the people originally in the song. Like, you know, that's like a thing that happened. And a lot of people would be quote tweeting it being like, yeah, no, it's the bit. It's part of the bit. And everyone's like, well, it's not funny. And here's the thing. They're not wrong. Like, if your thing is intending to be like funny, if you pick a bit that just pisses everyone off in the first like 6 days of you having something that blows up, is that the best thing to do? Is that like not some level of self-sabotage? Like maybe on like a artistic cred vibe, it's kind of like, well, I don't want those people as my fans if they don't get the bit. Or like, it's like a Kanye thing, you know, like as soon as they like you, make them unlike you or whatever. That's great. But like, my guy, you have been struggling to break through as a TikTok comedian for a very long time, and you're finally breaking through. I don't know. You guys know I love bits. I fucking love bits. But I don't know if this is the right bit. I don't know if this man wants to die on the hill of this bit. And like, there was a bit of a war in every tweet about this thing between people who were like, bring her back. This new girl sucks. I don't get it. And then explaining how the new girl doesn't look Eurodance 90s enough. I think my favorite thing I saw, someone said she looks like she's read a Vulture article, which I think is great because some people do just look like they've lived in the modern times, and it's like they can't take that off their face. But the other half is people being like, he's committed to a bit. It's clear this is a thing that he's doing. He's doubling down. Like, this is cool. It's funny. We think it's neat or whatever. No one said neat. But then a couple of days ago, he released a third version, but this time he replaced the brunette with, I think her name's Sabrina. A couple of episodes ago, I talked about watching Steven Soderbergh's Command Z, and I said there was a white girl on here who does like a TikTok thing where she plays like irritating like New York white girls, and I didn't know her name. It was this girl. If you guys, a little bit of lore, but it's her. So then people were kind of like, okay, now we fully know it's a bit, and the fact that you picked someone who's like pretty endeared to this audience kind of buys you a little leeway. But it's like, I don't know. The song's supposed to be out in a few days. I don't know how many more of these he's going to release. And I don't know the point, because I feel like the more he's diluted it for this bit, it is like killed, I mean, my personal interest for a full version of the song. Not that I had much to begin with. But I, like, the original exists, so we can ignore the sequels, so to speak. So that's true. But I'm so confounded. I'm so confused that this man is doing this. And I'm like, I feel like this has to be hurting your bottom line in some way. I don't know. But something about it's the approach. I'm just like, dude, I feel like you're blowing it, you know? Now, I could say that, and maybe a year from now, he's going to be on like a Pete Davidson original streaming series or something, and I was wrong entirely. My apologies. But it just feels off. And it's just funny that so much content and like, I can't really call it discourse. I don't think anyone's written any articles. If they have, I have pointedly not read them. But all of this about this thing, just like this guy's like initially silly and entertaining and like I don't want to say uplifting, but it was like a very fun bit of escapist whatever, you know. And now it's like this thing. Now it's just like a bit, but like in the bad way, not in the good way where something's a bit and it's fun. It's just like, what the fuck are you doing? So yeah, the only thing in the news I want to talk about was the Eurodance TikTok thing. I don't even remember the name of the song. I don't remember what the fuck it's called. But DJ Crazy Times coming at you. I guess you can just search him and there'll be a lot of funny screen grabs of him doing like different poses and stuff. So check that out, I guess. I'm gonna start in on a little bit of the what I've been watching about movies. I watched a couple movies that don't really have anything to do with William Friedkin dying. I watched them before he passed, but then the whole middle section of the episode, most of it is just going to be about my close personal friend Billy Friedkin. But last Friday, so like right the night after I put this last episode out, I wanted to watch some more Paul Newman movies because I talked in the last episode about Paul Newman and stardom and stuff. And the first one that popped into my mind, because I letterboxed, I just pulled up his thing in the grid and I saw the cover and I was like, I haven't watched that in a while. And I have this bad thing about myself where, like, between the ages of like 15 and 22, I watched probably like a third of the movies I've watched in my entire lifetime. All I did was watch movies like all the time. So there's a lot of like really great or classic or interesting movies that I watched maybe way too young. And now I'm way older and like it's almost like I never saw them because I just don't remember enough about them. So sometimes you watch a movie that you haven't seen since you were a teenager and it's like watching it fresh, or sometimes you remember bits about it, but I haven't seen The Verdict in a long time. Or at least I don't think I had seen it in a long time. It's a movie directed by Sidney Lumet. It's written by David Mamet, and it is a legal drama, and I love those. I don't think they make enough of them anymore. And Paul Newman plays a washed alcoholic ambulance chaser. He's a shitty lawyer, and his whole life is just like trash. And it's kind of weird seeing Paul Newman play like a fucking low down loser piece of shit or whatever, because he still has so much stature and power to his presence, but that just makes the fact that he's an alcoholic loser more tragic, because you're like, that's fucking Paul Newman and he's just such a bum. So the verdict is about him trying this really impossible case, and it's good shit. Basically what happens is he's an ambulance chaser. We watch him get kicked out of funerals, like going into people's funerals and pretending to have known the deceased to be like, oh, I was a friend of your father's, so you take my card. Like real, just like low, scummy shit. And he catches a case that's like perfect. It's not going to go to trial. Essentially, this young woman is in a coma, like in a catatonic state. She lost her baby in giving birth, and then it left her with like really bad brain damage. Because this hospital fucked up. It's like this church hospital. And her sister and her brother-in-law have been like kind of taking care of her and taking care of the costs and stuff. And they're just like, look, we just want to sue. They're going to settle. It's the church. And then we'll take that money and we can put her in like a nice home or something. And we won't have to deal with this anymore. It won't be a burden. And, you know, for Paul Newman's character, whose name I've already forgotten, perfect. He'll get a cut of the thing. He has guaranteed money. He's not making any. And this will be great. But then he doesn't have to, but he goes to see his client in her, vegetative state. And he brings a Polaroid camera so he can get some like really like nitty gritty shots of her, in a coma, to use as like emotional leverage when he's trying to negotiate the settlement. And this scene, if you've never seen The Verdict, you have to see this scene. It's just one small scene, like no dialogue. It's just Paul Newman, who's like a shark, comes into this room, sees this woman. He's taking these pictures of her, to milk more money from the church or whatever. And over the course of the photos developing, and he's just sitting there looking at her and looking at the pictures coming to life. And Paul Newman's eyes, oh my God, he just sells this total face turn. It's so good. You can just see like this man is like coming face to face with the fact that he is a piece of shit. And he was about to gleefully leave this person without a real defender for some money. And oh my God. When he like decides to like really try to fight them and actually try to beat the church, and then just discovers it's like impossible. It's just, you're watching this underdog, and like the fucking judge is on their side and stuff, and it's the opposing counsel is the defense for the church is I should have written this down. I'm so bad at I'm really good at remembering names in general. I'm not one of those people that goes, oh, who's that? But certain specific things that just escape me as I get older, and I really kind of hate it. It actually burns me up. but the opposing counsel in this movie is like it's like a well-known like British actor, and he's very, I don't remember his name right now, but he basically kind of sounds like a name that would be like a Family Guy gag. Like a Family Guy writer would think it's funny to reference this actor. Does that make sense? Anyway, he's just like a motherfucker, and he just pulls out every rule in the book to try to like fuck Paul Newman and stuff, and really real big scene stealer in the movie. And then there's a whole side plot about uh, Charlotte Rampling, I think, is like Paul Newman's love interest and stuff, and she kind of like fucks him over. But all this stuff with Paul Newman in the courtroom and like him talking to the jury and him just it's such good stuff. Mamet, it's one of his better screenplays during that era where Mamet was writing scripts for other people before he started directing them. And Lumet, just an incredible filmmaker. His book about making movies, I think it's called Making Movies. It's one of the first books about filmmaking I read when I was a youth. That it endeared me to him so deeply. Also, Lumet has so many bangers. Like, in a way, watching the Lumet films was interesting before I watched the Friedkin stuff, because they kind of come from a similar... Friedkin's later, I think, but they kind of come from that similar niche in Hollywood from before the movie brats took over in the 70s. All the, like, film school weirdos and stuff like Spielberg and Scorsese and Lucas and De Palma and all them. You had this handful of guys who got their start in television. Before, like, that's how they made movies. They made television, and then they made a TV movie at some point, and then moved into real film. So, like, Sidney Lumet, his first movie, 12 Angry Men, great movie, the production of that play, was like a made-for-TV movie, but it's also like his first movie. It's like a really, really good movie. Friedkin remade it for, I want to say HBO or Showtime, when I was like a youth, and it's pretty good too. But Friedkin and Lumet, I think, kind of both come from that, like, we did television live and stuff, and then we got into feature films. And I feel like of that class of guys, Lumet's probably the best. And Friedkin came a little later, but he's also, like, one of the best. But had Friedkin not died, I probably would have spent the whole week watching or rewatching Sidney Lumet movies. There's some I haven't seen. There's like I got several from like the 60s I haven't seen. I've seen most of his like 70s and 80s stuff, and some of the 90s stuff, and his last movie, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, which is like really underrated. Lumet, he's just such a king, you know? And I wanted to watch another Lumet movie right after I watched The Verdict, but like I couldn't find one that was like easily streaming. And then I saw, I don't know why I ended up watching this. I watched Guilty as Sin. It is a movie where Don Johnson plays a guy who threw his wife out of a window, and everyone knows he's guilty, but he like charms his way into getting represented by Rebecca De Mornay. Remember Rebecca De Mornay? She used to be in a lot of things in the 90s and then like nothing. I think the last thing I saw her was like Jessica Jones. Anyway, it's another legal thriller, but it's like her trying to represent this guy, and he's a sleazy, selfish womanizer with mommy issues. And I've never seen a performance like this before. Don Johnson, I don't want to say he's at his hottest, because I sort of think Don Johnson's hottest was in Book Club 1. I think he just looks really good in that movie. But he's at probably like peak hotness for other people. Or no, he's got a couple of those really like sleazy crime movies. Anyway, Don Johnson's he's a hunk. But he's so hot in this movie, and he has so much charisma. It's like actually like toxic. It's like his aura, his vibe is like he's made of knives. Like he's just a sharp, untrustworthy, sleazy, weird fuck. He's just gross. I'm just talking about him, when I fucking spit. But he is so good in this movie, and like I remember thinking, okay, if the whole bit is that he's guilty and we kind of know he's guilty, and like Rebecca De Mornay's going to find out he's guilty, but she has to represent him anyway and can't get rid of the case, like where's the drama going to come from? And the drama mostly comes from her trying to like prove that he did it without throwing the case and getting disbarred and all sorts of stuff. But he is so much. Also, oh my god, Rebecca De Mornay's character is like engaged or like dating this other guy who's like a salesperson or something, and it's Stephen Lang from Avatar and other things. But he's unrecognizable. You know how Stephen Lang is unrecognizable in Manhunter, because he plays Freddie Lounds in Michael Mann's Manhunter. In this, he has similarly fucked up hair, but also a giant mustache. He's like a completely different person. Modern day, older Stephen Lang, you would like never cast to be like the like cuck in like a love triangle or something. But here, he just nails it as this like guy that, Don Johnson's like out charming and stuff. The movie never gets quite sleazy enough to make Rebecca De Mornay like genuinely fall for his antics. I feel like if this had been later in the 90s, it 100% would have gone there, because it's kind of like, again, Billy Friedkin, it's kind of adjacent to Jade and like that Joe Esterhaas type of stuff. But it's like a little classier because it's Lumet. He's not going to go down that road. I remember the whole time I kept thinking, like, man, what about this is like a Brian De Palma movie. This would be very different. But it's pretty good. Like, it's kind of boilerplate at some point, and like it's not the best, not one of his best films. But Don Johnson is a tour de force in it. It's like really, really good. So many movies in the 90s had that, suave, like guilty guy in court stuff, but like no one was touching the shit he was doing here. He's like such a beautiful sociopath. Like, just the way he like manipulates and stuff. And it's like, there's a scene of him like making a sandwich. He's using like a giant butcher knife to smear mayonnaise on the bread. And it's just such a weird choice, but it's like, it makes sense. This guy's just fucking nuts. Guilty of Sin, I want to say, is on Prime. Might be on Prime. You guys should check that out. It's a good flick. But anyway, we got to talk about William Friedkin. Rest in peace. So prior to this week, I've not been like a big William Friedkin head. He's not like a filmmaker who like I talk about all the time or obsess over or anything. I think he's very talented. He's always been a guy who I thought was cool because his interviews are always cool. He's always talking mad shit. Everyone loves that clip of him mocking Nick Refn when Nick Refn tries to call Only God Forgives a masterpiece. Like he had this kind of no nonsense vibe that I think a lot of people, myself included, really liked. But my main reason for always keeping William Friedkin like close to my heart is several years ago. I'd seen a few of his movies, probably like the big ones, and then Killer Joe came out. I didn't see Bug, but Bug's like an important like late period Friedkin movie. I've still never seen it, but I watched Killer Joe when it came out. I worked at a movie theater when it was out, like, so I watched it like at work or not, like after work, whatever. And I loved it. I thought Tracy Letts' script was really good. It's sort of like the real beginning of the reconnaissance, if you don't want to count The Lincoln Lawyer, like I don't. And great cast. Everything about that movie is like really, really good. It's such a black comedy. And I thought it was crazy that Billy Friedkin was still doing stuff and still doing it. So it led to this thing that happened at work a lot with my friend Kyle Bragg, who we talk about in the pod a lot. I would always call Friedkin Billy Friedkin at work if we referenced him, and Kyle would be like, "You don't know him. Why are you calling him Billy? That's like his friends call him Billy." And I'm like, "Well, he's my friend too. I'm gonna fucking call him Billy. Fuck you." And it's like a bit we've always had between the two of us. You know what I mean? Like my close personal friend Billy Friedkin or whatever. And then Kyle outdid me a few years later. They had like an event at his theater, and William Friedkin was there. And he took a picture with him and stuff. So he's always been like my close personal friend Billy Friedkin. Fuck you. So the second I found out, the first person I texted was Kyle. I was like, "Kyle, Billy's gone," and he was like, "The fuck?" And I was like, "Friedkin." And he was like, "Oh, fuck, that sucks." But I don't know. It sucks that he's gone. I don't mean to be laughing. I was just thinking about the bit and Kyle. But Friedkin, the movie that everyone, I guess like his most known movie really is The Exorcist. And remember I mentioned I watched the movies too young to really like connect to them. I watched The Exorcist very young, and I don't remember it like at all. All of my memories of The Exorcist are little clips that you see in documentaries. And then other memories I have of it are probably from like a Leslie Nielsen movie or something parodying it. Like I don't have a connection to that movie. And it's not something I ever feel like rewatching. So when I was like, I'm going to watch some Friedkin movies, I did not watch The Exorcist. I started with Friedkin Uncut. There's a really good documentary about him. It's mostly a good documentary. It's a little bit, everyone talks a little too glowingly in it, if that makes sense. Like, it kind of reminds you of like that really big Spielberg documentary series they did on HBO a few years ago, where it was just like, so we're just going to suck this man's dick for like 480 minutes. It kind of had that vibe, but shorter. But the interview portions with Friedkin are really good, obviously. A lot of really great quotables and stuff. And they talk about his filmography in a really unique way. And I think that most of the other filmmakers that talk about him, those are the best parts. When they talk to actors he's worked with and stuff like that, and like there's like this one like English film critic, I think, or European film critic who like just really on the man's knob. But like Quentin has some funny stuff. He shows up Tarantino. They talk to Wes Anderson quite a bit, which is a little bit strange, but like, an interesting perspective. They talk to my man Walter Hill, which is good because like there's some kinship there. And his friend Philip Kaufman, I think they went to high school together, and Philip Kaufman made All the Right Moves. Not All the Right Moves. Why did I say that? The Right Stuff. I was imagining in my head, in my mind palace, I was imagining that next to All the Right Moves on Tom Cruise's. Tom Cruise wasn't in. What the fuck? Anyway, I don't know how I got on that. I'm so sorry. That was weird. I should cut that, but I'm not gonna. Okay. Anyway, Friedkin Uncut's a good doc, and it got me wanting to watch some Friedkin movies. So my plan originally was there's two classic Friedkin movies I've never seen. I've never seen Cruisin', and I've never seen Sorcerer. I've never seen Wages of Fear either, but I certainly have never seen Sorcerer. So I was like, I'm gonna watch that, and then I was like, gonna pick a random. After like 1980, whatever, 1986 or so, Friedkin started doing a lot more like studio fare, where like he made Rules of Engagement, which is like a movie I've written about before. That's like a big 90s like studio picture. He did Hunted with Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro. He's made movies that are like they're not like what I would consider Friedkin movies. They're like, oh, I didn't know he did that. Like when I saw Jade for the first time, I was like, I know this was him. Or I saw that he directed Blue Chips. I've never seen that, and I was like, Friedkin directed a movie about basketball? I guess I should watch that. That was my plan, was to watch Blue Chips. We'll get to it, though. So, the first thing I watched was Sorcerer. I've never seen it before. The only thing I really kind of got from the doc was, like, Quentin Tarantino kept harping about how Roy Scheider should have been in it, and it would have been better if it was Steve McQueen or Robert Blake. And I know I loved his book, Cinema Speculation. I love all of his what ifs and stuff, but that time I was just like, man, I haven't watched this movie. Why are you already dogging out my boy Roy? But, Sorcerer. Okay, so I lately have been trying to interrogate within myself the fact that I have a lot of like movie bro tendencies. I know the term movie bro has been perverted to the point that it's like kind of a catch-all for stuff. It's just like a thing, but I tend to gravitate towards movies made by like kind of macho auteur type guys, like more than you would think. Like in real life, I'm very like wary of like traditional masculinity and stuff, but like I don't really like male authority figures in my regular everyday life. Like I butt heads with I have dad issues. That's basically what we're getting at. But when it comes to movies, like I love all the movie dads, all the like guys who are sort of like every film bros sort of like father or whatever. And it's something I'm like wondering, because like it's not like I don't watch movies directed by women. It's not like I don't watch foreign films or independent films and stuff like that. But I'm always like, do I like this stuff too much? Is this like, am I that guy? Am I that guy who's like isn't open enough to more like avant-garde shit because I just love Michael Mann so much? Am I a cliche? So you know. I've been wondering if I'm getting too deep into like the dude's rockism of movies, if that makes sense. I say all that to say that I am trying to figure that out about myself and my future and what I cover and what I write about. But when I watched Sorcerer for the first time, that shit got my dick hard. Like, that movie rocks so fucking much. Like, it's fucking insane that this movie exists. I don't even understand how they fucking made it. Like, I don't understand how no one died filming it, how they didn't just kill each other. If you've never seen Sorcerer, it's a loose remake of Wages of Fear, which is a Clouseau film, French film from like I don't know when the fuck that movie came out, I'm not gonna lie. But Sorcerer is like a retelling of it. It has the same basic premise, but different characters, and I think the setting's a little bit different. Sorcerer stars Roy Scheider and then three other actors whose names I don't remember because I've never seen anything before, but they are real people and they have real names. I just didn't write them down. But it's basically four very desperate men from different places who all end up in this like town in like South America where like you're just stripped of your life and your name, and you have like fake, like you live in a fake passport to hide out from whoever's after you in other countries. And like Roy Scheider's like a getaway driver for a heist, and like the people accidentally kill this mafia guy's brother, so he has to leave New York. And then there's a Parisian banker who has like done some fraud, and his rich father-in-law can't cover him, so he runs away because his life will be ruined. He leaves his wife behind. There's a Palestinian terrorist where like I think they were just like, what's the thing we can try to make in like 1970 whatever that like people that would think is irredeemable, like a Palestinian person. And then there's a fourth guy who's just like he's like a hitman or something. I didn't fully get that character. He's like just like sort of like a villainous type. But the four of them end up down and out in this area where like you work these horrible, you do random jobs in the jungle and stuff, and you don't make enough money to do anything. You're just fucked. You're never gonna get out of this. It's like this horrible type of exploitation. They make enough to like exist. I wouldn't call it a living. And they're working like these oil. This whole town primarily lives off of the work on these oil fields, and like an explosion goes off from I think like local, I guess, terrorists. And the only way to put the fire out is to use dynamite. The only dynamite they have is 218 miles away, and it's not been like maintained or turned over, so it's all just dripping nitroglycerin. So like, it's if you like bump into a case, it'll just blow. As I'm saying this, even this sounds like a Michael Bay movie. Like it sounds like a '90s studio explosion picture. It's so explosive, but it doesn't. It's obviously not executed that way. It's very tense and rugged and sweaty and just like desperate. There's like, I think in my notes I wrote the sweaty desperation of Sam Peckinpah. Like it just kind of made me feel a bit like it was Peckinpah adjacent. I'm not enough of a Peckinpah guy to like really back up if that sounds good or not, but it is like, there's a critic. I'm not going to name him because I don't want to be a dick, but there's a pretty well-known critic. He's pretty well-known on like film Twitter. Like I guarantee you, once I say, you'll know who I'm talking about. But he called the cops on someone at a film screening once at a festival because they had their phone out. Like he called 911 about it. You guys, if you know that story, you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to name his name because he's never been mean to me or anything. But he's whatever. He logged Sorcerer this week and was talking about how it was kind of boring. And he was like, parts of this are kind of boring. It's da, 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 da. And he was kind of giving that weird like CinemaSins approach to like the movie. This is a movie where like there's like a bunch of buildup, but then most of the movie is four men trying to get two trucks full of extremely explosive and unstable dynamite across 218 miles of the jungle. What boring? I don't what like so I if people watch this movie and they're like this is too boring for them, I just want to go jangle some fucking keys in their face. Like, what is boring about this movie to you? There's literally bombs. Things are going to blow up. You were promised for there to be explosions, and you're like, I don't know, a little too boring for me. What the fuck? Sorcerer is so good. It is so insanely good. It's obviously it's like a '70s movie, so it's got that thing where it ends in a way that's a bummer. Like every movie in the '70s, you're like, it sucks, but I guess it's true. But it tackles like, I'm not going to compare like my own personal struggles in the workplace with guys in the dynamite in the jungle and stuff, but like it really tackles like exploitation in a way that's really meaningful. Like just knowing that like the type of things people will do to earn a dollar, and it's also such a doomed movie because it's just like really about like the randomness of life and about fate and like so many little things happen where it's like, you don't have a lot of control over how any of this goes. And Friedkin in one of the interviews, and Friedkin and Cut talked about how that's always been something that terrifies him, that like the really scariest thing in the world to him is like you have no control over how life goes. You have no idea what it's about, what's going to happen and when. And if you really ponder it for too long, it actually is kind of fucked up. So Sorcerer is like, I feel like I could keep talking about it for a lot longer, but I'm afraid I'm just going to be slobbing it in a weird way. So like, but it's a really, really good movie, and like if you've never seen it, you should see it. And also, they were all on some bullshit about Roy Scheider. I thought Roy was really good. I tried to picture McQueen in the movie, and I was like, I guess that would have been cool, but I thought Roy was fantastic. I what the fuck? Anyway, Sorcerer, really good. The next Friedkin movie I watched I'd never seen before, and I always kind of wanted to, was Cruisin'. And Cruisin' something else. I think my favorite thing I saw anyone say about Cruising was after I watched Check Letterboxd. I live on Letterboxd, and my friend Pat had watched it maybe a year or two ago or something, and he had a line in his Letterboxd review that was just like, imagine if Brian De Palma made this, as a way to sort of be like, there's things about the movie that feel outdated and like maybe not very culturally sensitive or whatever, and then you're like, it could have been worse. Could have been Brian De Palma. Like he would have never thought about any of that stuff. This would have been like, oh, well, I want to do a Hitchcock thing. We'll cut this guy's dick off, and it'll be like in Topaz. So, Cruisin' is essentially a murder mystery that uses the backdrop of New York City's like gay S&M scene, like leather bars and stuff. It came out in 1980, so this is like, tail end of the 70s. Friedkin had some friends in the mafia, I guess. What a guy. And some of those guys owned those clubs, and he wanted to be able to film in them, and they let him film in these leather bars. And he's like, this is a big extreme within gay culture at the time. And he did not intend, or as he in Freakin' Uncut, he talks a lot about how he doesn't think about himself as a very political filmmaker, and he just tells stories and stuff. And like, the longer I watch the doc, the more I'm like, is that you just keeping kayfabe? Because I feel like there's no way you don't think about this stuff. There's no way you don't think about what these ideas mean politically and things. And I'm not sure, but he insists that Cruisin' was just supposed to be a cop movie. He wanted to tell a murder mystery. He thought that would be a fascinating backdrop. There is someone killing gay men, cruising them and then murdering them, and you watch like one of the first kills in the movie, and the police captain trying to solve it is Paul Sorvino, rest in peace, Mira Sorvino, Academy Award winner's father, from Goodfellas and stuff. He also used to be on Law and Order briefly, and they discover that the killer is like killing the same type. It's all like small, 130-pound, dark-haired, dark-eyed, like vaguely ethnic dudes, whatever. So they get Al Pacino in, young Al Pacino, Short King, and they're like, you want to go undercover and pretend to be gay for like a couple of months until this guy hopefully tries to kill you because you're his type. And he's like, yeah, sure. And the thing about this movie, okay, is I read a little bit about it. I didn't do tons of research or anything. I'm not a scholar to that degree, but I feel like so I think Friedkin said that he had to like go back to the MPAA 40 times or something to get the movie rated an R from an X, because there was just so much. Basically, I think Tarantino talks about it saying it was like more graphic than gay porn somehow. Like there's a bunch of just sex stuff in the back of the movie. And it's like one of those things where you can cut all this stuff and then the story sort of stays the same, right? People are always talking about like sex in movies is gratuitous and you don't need to show it. Da, da, da. I feel like this movie is a great example of why maybe you should, because so much of what the movie feels like it should be about is the ambiguity of Al Pacino's character. Like when he takes the assignment, you're like, is he taking it because he's secretly gay and like this is going to be hard for him? And then like you find out that he has a girlfriend, and it's Karen Allen. He's just like every scene they have together, them fucking. But you get this vibe of like what the process stuff, the cop stuff in the movie of like watching him like create his character kind of and like get into the scene and stuff. You can tell it's maybe a bit of an influence on Reservoir Dogs, all the stuff with Tim Roth becoming, Mr. Orange, whatever. That stuff's really good. But a lot of the movie is Al Pacino in various, kink clubs, just looking at stuff, just watching. It's just like, it's clear that the movie was supposed to be a lot of footage of people just doing like raunchy, sweaty, men fucking things. And then you're going to cut to Al Pacino looking kind of hollowed out as he did throughout his youth and just kind of, just reacting to it or whatever. And then you're supposed to draw conclusions about what he feels about it. You're supposed to draw conclusions about, does he go home with any of these guys? We never see it physically happen. Is he into this stuff? Is he repulsed? All the, like, it's just like, it creates like this sort of vibe that is really interesting and kind of fascinating. But when you pull all that stuff out, it's just shots of him looking at dudes vaguely rubbing on each other. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just guys like kind of just being dudes and rubbing on each other and like chaps and stuff. And you're like, this doesn't feel that graphic. And it seems like it undersells the, like, this is like the seediest, craziest shit you done ever seen, boy. These boys is doing all sorts of, nah, they're just kind of like not vogue, you don't want to say that, but they're just kind of like just chilling out and rubbing on each other. You know what I mean? Like you see some people engaging in certain acts and stuff, but it feels very tame, at least for today's standards or whatever. So I remember thinking like, maybe this movie would have been like way more elite if we got to watch Al Pacino watch some like real beater shit. You know what I'm saying? I was like, this is like some Skinamax stuff, basically. We're talking about for like the real beaters out there. I have no idea why this episode sounds this way with this much weird sex stuff. I'm sorry. But anyway, Cruisin'. Pacino's really good in it. There's a couple of other really good performances that like very small, like young James Remar plays Pacino's neighbor's boyfriend. there's I don't remember the name of the guy that plays the killer, but the first scene in the movie, the first kill that you watch, is so well done. It's so scary and like haunting and like alluring and all these different things. And like if the whole movie was like this scene, this would be like an actual masterpiece. No, Nick Refn. And I don't feel like the movie ever fully recaptures that. I just love the first guy that gets killed. His entire vibe is so like uh he's so enigmatic and interesting, and then he just gets snuffed out, and that just makes it feel so gross and sad. Uh like he just the killer asks him like what he's doing there, like why are you in this club, because he's not doing anything kinky, and he's like, I'm having ego problems, I need to be like worshipped and adored. And you're like, yeah, I feel that, bro. And then you get stabbed to super death. But there's also parts of Cruising, and I'll talk about this in the next Friedkin movie I mentioned. There's parts of Friedkin movies that are just like funnier than they should be, if that makes sense. Bear with me. Like there's a bit where Pacino and one of the suspects they get picked up like trying to hook up in public because everyone's convinced this guy's the killer. He's not the killer. So the other cops just like beat the shit out of him, like mercilessly, to try to get him to confess. But it's really just them abusing some gay people. It's fucked up. But part of their like good cop bad cop abusing routine is they just bring this big mandingo dude in who's like not wearing anything, and he just sporadically comes in and just beats the shit out of the guy. Not like prolonged, he'll just come in and hit him and leave. And the timing on these scenes is like it's not supposed to be. It's a pretty like fucked up intense scene, but it's kind of funny because the guy even says like, who's that guy, why does he keep coming in here? And it feels like a bit. And I was just like, this is strange. There's a similar scene I'll reference in the next movie we get to, but like yeah, that some of the ending also, I don't know if I'm gonna jump into the ending of Cruising, but like it's in one of those ambiguous endings, and I understand why it's controversial in the sense that like it's sort of, depending on how you interpret it, implies that like men will just turn into serial killers if they realize they like looking at dicks, I guess. I don't know if that was Friedkin's intended thing. I don't know if he ever saw like a really hot guy and was like, I would murder 12 people because of this. I would fucking go on a rampage. I would turn into the torso killer. Because the movie opens with like them finding a severed arm in the whatever river in New York or whatever, and it really felt like a Fulci movie or something. I was like, this is like really gross. But yeah, I think it's a really good movie. I think more people should see it. Friedkin hated Pacino on this movie, I guess. He felt like Pacino didn't take the job seriously. And then Pacino would say that Friedkin didn't really give him enough specificity, like to know what he was really supposed to be doing. And I think Friedkin tends to want actors to bring stuff to the role and to like be into it enough to have their own ideas. And I don't think that Pacino doesn't do that, but I guess for this job, he just wasn't into it or whatever. But it's not a bad performance. Friedkin talked about it like, fuck Pacino. And I was like, this is a pretty good performance. I mean, I don't know who would have done better, I guess, but I liked it. But Cruising, I don't know, Cruising was both not what I expected and also kind of what I expected. At the time, it was so controversial because like gay people did not want, I guess like white gay people specifically, did not want a movie to come out to make people think that all gay people were into this leather shit. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same people today who don't like kink at Pride or whatever. And I feel like the movie does like explicitly say like, these aren't your regular gays, these are like super gays. Like the movie does take time out to be like, oh no, this subculture is like extremely niche. And but I guess, I don't know, 1980, pre-AIDS crisis, I don't know if the straights would have gotten it. I have no idea. But I remember watching it like now and thinking about how like, of course this movie got reclaimed post-AIDS crisis because so many younger gay people in the 90s like and onward like just had no concept that this was ever a thing. So much of this movie is just the background is men walking around, rubbing on each other, wearing whatever, and like doing stuff. And it does a really great job of showing how like corrupt and horrible police are, which we love. And I don't know, it was a good movie. There's like this real through line between all of Friedkin's quote unquote best movies where you just like going there. He's just a guy that likes going there. He just like he'll just do the violence, the whatever. Like he'll push it. He has no problem pushing things, and it's interesting. In some ways, I've seen people compare him to Michael Mann, and then it's like two rugged Jewish guys from Chicago who like don't take any bullshit, and they both are really big into like, almost like documentary like approach to certain things. Like every like cop movie that like Friedkin ever made, he was like always really entrenched with the cops and trying to get the details right. Michael Mann's famous for sending people to boot camps for things like that, and I feel like the movie that most makes me consider them together is, so I didn't end up not watching Blue Chips. I didn't feel like it. I love Nick Nolte, but I was not in the mood. So I just rewatched To Live and Die in L.A., which is one of my favorite movies ever made. To Live and Die in L.A. It's Friedkin. It's a cop movie. It's in Los Angeles. Like Michael Mann, I feel like Friedkin and Michael Mann both have a thing where whatever city they're shooting in or whatever place they're showing you, they're really showing it to you. Michael Mann's L.A. and Friedkin's LA are not the same, but they both feel. I've never lived in LA. I've been there once now, but it feels so like real. It's like certain film, like his New York does not feel like other people's New York. Sidney Lumet's New York does not feel like other people's New York. But they both seem like guys who have like a specific vision for the urban sprawls they go to. And Friedkin doing LA after doing the French Connection in New York. People love the French Connection car chase and stuff, but there's a car chase in To Live and Die in LA that's like maybe the best car chase in a movie ever. He has so many great chase sequences, more than most people when you think about it. Anyways, Live and Die in LA is a movie about a Secret Service agent played by William Peterson. It's like William Peterson's like first big role, way years before CSI, and like 1 year before doing Manhunter with Michael Mann. And I'd seen Manhunter several times because I grew up a Manhead. I really loved the book Red Dragon. So Peterson's Will Graham in that movie is a very strange performance, and it's kind of whatever. So when I watched To Live and Die in LA, I'm like, how did you guys watch this and think this guy should play Will Graham? Because he's so electric in this movie. He's like this like cocky, thrill-seeking, like I don't want to say, I guess you can call him a crooked cop, but just a cop that like does whatever it takes to get the guy. Essentially, his partner, like 2 days before retirement, is killed by a counterfeiter played by Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe is Rick Masters, this like criminal kingpin artist who makes counterfeit money, and in a way, it's almost like an art that he does. And Peterson's just obsessed with catching him, and he's really hard to catch. That's like the basic thing. It's just he's trying to fucking get this guy however possible. And it's such a sleazy and like gritty movie, and it's also so fucking 80s. It hurts. It's like a Wang Chung score. Every scene has just like crazy like guitars, and like every time somebody gets shot, their whole fucking head blows up. And it is such a movie. It is so fucking good. There's this bit, and like the way people talk is crazy in the movie too. Like there's a bit where Peterson, his character's name is Chance. Chance has like an informant that he is also stupping. And after sex, she's asking him if he can get her some more money. And, she's like, I have expenses. And he's like, Uncle Sam doesn't give a shit about your expenses. You want bread? Fuck a baker. And I'm like, I love shit like this in movies. I love just like these like shitty, rotten cowboys. You know what I mean? And like, you're not really aggrandizing them or making them seem cool. I mean, they seem cool. But you're also showing how their recklessness just leads to tragedy. That like being this much of a maverick is almost always going to be ruinous. In a way, Chance in To Live and Die in LA is like a dark like precedent for Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible movies. I was thinking about this. I'm like, this guy, very devoted to his dead friend, will do anything for him, to get revenge for him. But he what he won't do is follow the rules. And this movie has that Mission Impossible-esque structure of him getting deeper and deeper into horrible ideas to try to do what he really thinks is right. Like, I know this is illegal, but this is what I have to do. And unlike where Ethan is always sort of vindicated by the end of the movie, I don't want to spoil the third act of To Live and Die in LA. If you've never seen it, you should just watch it raw. It's like the polar opposite of that. It's like, oh no, you probably should have followed some of the fucking rules. You probably should have listened to your boss on occasion. I've never seen a movie about the hotshot cop who doesn't like authority that ever was like, no, but this is why we have rules. This is why we do things the way we do them. You gotta like stop this. Really, really great performance from William Peterson. Dafoe is really great. He's very cool, but also like kind of sleazy. And I keep saying sleazy. A lot of sleazy stuff happened this week. John Turturro's in it. Young John Turturro, who's pretty good, is like one of his like associates. There's this guy. He plays like the young partner to Chance. His name's like Vukovic. I don't remember the actor's name. I've never seen anything else before, to my knowledge. And the whole time I was watching it, I was like, if they made this today, this would be Scoot McNairy. I haven't seen Scoot McNairy in anything since like True Detective season 3, but I'm like, Scoot would be so good for this. I almost want to try to make this happen, a remake of this movie that's not going to be as good, just to watch Scoot McNairy as Vukovic. If anyone knows Scoot McNairy, and they're listening to this, just get this idea to him. He might be able to help make something happen once the strikes are over. Uh, but anyway, yeah, no, killer movie, great opening credits, great everything, great score, great, just great everything, man. The fucking car chase is insane. If you don't even want to watch the movie, just watch the middle car chase that happens after the bus heist. Trust me, you'll love it. But yeah, that's what I watched this week. I watched 6 whole movies this week, guys. It's like kind of big for me lately. I've not done that in a minute. I haven't even cracked 100 movies for the year, guys. It's crazy. I got a lot of work to do these next few months. But yeah, Friedkin. I might try to find some more movies of his to watch this week if I have time. I have kind of a lot of stuff to do though, so I don't know. But he will be missed. Very important filmmaker. So many bangers. And if you've always like wondered about some of the movies of his you haven't seen, check them out. It's always a good time to kind of revisit someone's work. I thought some of like the obituaries were kind of like shitty and weird and just kind of act like, yeah, he only had 2 good movies, and it's like, that's such horseshit. You guys are just losers. I hate that. Um, yeah. So we could move on to the Q&A section of this episode because we're kind of gonna want to wind down soon here. Okay. First question. Iris asks, "What's your Gilligan verse bald / shaved head man power ranking?" And since you mentioned adaptation, what are some of your thoughts on Charlie Kaufman's Overa? Those are like 2 very different but very good questions. Uh, my Gilligan verse power rankings. All I know is that Mike Ehrmantraut is number 1, and he's the top, and then Walt is the very bottom. When I first started watching Breaking Bad, a lot of my friends that try to get me into it were like, "This guy's so badass, it's so cool." And then I watched it and I was like, "Oh, this guy sucks. I fucking hate this dude. I don't like watching him do anything." I finished the show eventually, obviously, but just can't stand Walt. Not a fan. And then I guess somewhere in the middle would be like, I guess like the true median would be like the twins, like the Salamanca twin guys. They're both bald, I think. And then I guess above them, but between Ehrmantraut would be Jesse when he's shaved head, and Michael Mando's Nacho, like those 2 guys, sort of like, Mike's guys. I had a guy, you're not the guy. And I don't know who would be on the bottom part of it. I'm trying to think of other bald people from the show. I really can't. I can't think of other bald or shaved head people from the show, which is kind of embarrassing. I'm probably forgetting someone like huge, from Saul maybe, but I don't know. Yeah, those are I think the big important ones. Uh, oh, the second part of the question. What do I think of Charlie Kaufman's Uber? I've always loved, when I first wanted to be a screenwriter, I read like every Charlie Kaufman thing, like ever, and I loved Eternal Sunshine, I loved Adaptation. I think the only one of his things I'd ever got into was the movie. I don't remember who. It's another music video director, I think, directed it, and it's called Human Nature. Is that it? Maybe I don't remember anything about that movie. I've seen it. I've read the script. That's the only one of his movies that I don't really jive with. I'm not crazy about his last movie. I'm thinking of Ending Things. I thought it was cool, but I wasn't nuts about it. And I feel the same way about Anomalisa. Here's how I feel about Charlie Kaufman. I think when he made Synecdoche, New York, that it was such a towering achievement. I think that movie's great. I think it's like one of the greatest movies ever made. I don't know where you go from that. Like, that's to me like the zenith of what a Charlie Kaufman movie can or should be, and he did it. I would like no notes. Like, it's the sort of thing where like, this is gonna sound really bad. I almost said it all without thinking about it. I was gonna say it's almost like if he had died. Not that I want Charlie Kaufman to die, but like if he had made that movie and then died, his filmography would be like, holy shit! Like, he died after this opus, but instead he's done a bunch of like random things that I don't think have connected quite the same. I don't know if he's ever really gonna like recapture the magic of like young Kaufman or younger Kaufman. Um, but I don't know. One thing about him I want to say is that I really think, I know it was butchered and stuff, but like Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, really underrated movie. I know people don't think Clooney is a great director, but Rockwell is so good in that movie. I might rewatch that soon. If you haven't seen that movie, you guys should see it. It's a lot better than you remember. That and Good Night and Good Luck, another George Clooney movie. People just overlook this man as a filmmaker, probably because Leatherhead sucks. Uh, Futura asks, I remember seeing Subway ads for The Equalizer 2 and being so disappointed that it wasn't called The Sequelizer. And what lackluster sequel title would you rethink? Well, there's only one answer for this for me, but I'm not going to go deep on it because I would just be retreading a Dan Harmon bit. But Now You See Me 2 is the stupidest fucking name for a sequel to Now You See Me. Like, he has this whole huge rant where he's talking about how it should have been called Now You Don't. And I get why it wasn't, because that would be weirder to market, but Now You See Me 2 is a stupid fucking title. It's so fucking stupid. What a waste. Great question. Tony A asks, okay, so this is like multiple questions, and I think they're all pretty good, and I wanted to like kind of expand on them. He specifically was like, you don't have to do all of them all at once, but I'm gonna. So Tony A asks, what is your writing process like? Is it different? Is it a different process for writing articles as it is to writing screenplays? So first thing I'll say, I haven't written anything screenwriting in years, a few years. I have this one feature. I once every 6 months like map out an outline, and then I never get past like the first 20 pages. But it's I'm gonna finish it at some point, I suppose. But I don't remember the last thing I wrote that was like an actual real script or something that's like not criticism. I've my original goal was always to write movies and try to make movies, and talking about them, writing about them was just a thing, and then it stuck, and I do like it, so it's not like I hate it or something. There's always this thing that like all critics are just failed artists, and like I don't believe that. I can't really believe that. But my writing process is like not cool or anything I would ever suggest anybody reproduce. I tend to just take a bunch of random little notes, and if I've ever I have a few friends I've shown, if I've ever shown you my notes, it's just like a bunch of phrases. It's just a bunch of like 2 or 3 word phrases, and they're thoughts, and they're just meant to remind me of longer ideas later. So when I get to my notes, I keep that at the bottom, and I write out whatever, and then I keep checking to make sure I like fit all those ideas in, so I didn't forget anything. I don't know that it's a good process. I don't know that I like my process. I just don't know how else to do things. And I always feel like I get an unfair amount of praise from my peers and friends, many of whom I think are so much better at anything that I do than me. And I always feel like they're just going to figure out like, no, this is not a good process. No one should reproduce this. For screenplays, I mean, here's the thing about writing a script is like a lot of people tell you to just start writing, and some people will just start writing and like you'll never get past the 30th page. I can't tell you how many 30 pages of scripts I've written in my life because I didn't outline first, because I didn't like figure out the whole thing first. So like that's kind of why the last project that I really started but then never did anything with is like, there's actually 2 features I've been doing this with for the last few years. One is like a, I'm not going to tell what it's like the actual log line or whatever. I want to steal it. But one is like a comedy, so like sort of like a coming age comedy. Comedy's very hard to write, but this is a very important story to me. So like I think I can get it at one of these days. And the other one is more like a detective story, but I've always thought it would make like a really cool like debut movie, because even though it's a mystery, it has a lot of just like personal shit in it. And I don't know. Hopefully I'll do that someday. Tony has more questions. Very good questions. Are you able to turn off your film critic mode when you see movies, or are you always making mental notes? Do you take physical notes from your theater? Okay. I hate the idea of taking physical notes in the theater. And I see critics do it when I'm at screenings sometimes. Like you can hear their pens. And you do what you got to do. But I'll admit, okay, so when I watch screeners at home, when I am home, I will take notes like on my phone while I'm watching it, especially for when I'm doing like a video or something. I know I'm going to need B-roll later. I take time codes like as I go for like I know I'm gonna need that shot. I'm gonna want that sequence or something. So like I do take notes when I'm watching stuff at home for like research or whatever. When I go to the movies, I can't read my own handwriting. I have really bad, embarrassingly bad handwriting. So if I take myself notes, I won't be able to read them later, especially if I read them in the dark. But I will admit, what's a review? I wrote a review recently where I didn't go to a screening. It was the movie Chevalier. I wrote about it for the Baltimore Beat, and I just went to the theater to watch it on like a random Tuesday, and there was like almost no one in there. And I'd never done this before. I just left my phone on and I wrote notes the whole movie. And it was a weird thing. I'd never done it before. I'd probably never do it again. It felt like I was crossing some kind of line. It felt like, don't do this. And then when I was writing it, I had too many ideas that were too specific. So trying to write that review, it was just like, I tried to do, I don't have a lot of space in the paper to fit this. And I had so many things. And I was like, this is bad. Don't do this again. You know, my usual rule, which has worked for me for a long time, is just, you're not going to remember every little thing you think about a movie. It is, like I said, it actually is generally hard for me to turn critic brain off, but I can if I'm enjoying something, typically. Like, if I'm not enjoying something, I can't turn it off. But if I'm having a good time, I forget who I am, which is why you guys have probably seen a lot of, if you follow me and you've seen a lot of my reviews, I have several pretty positive reviews of movies that 6 months later, I'm like, that wasn't very good, because I allowed myself to just be swept up in the thing. You know, I have to do that for my own sanity. I can't always be, nah, 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 I didn't like this, me son, you know? So, uh, but yeah, the note thing, I don't know. I just, my general rule of thumb is like, if it was important to my experience or my thoughts on the film, I'll remember them. If I don't, chances are it wasn't that important to me. I don't know if that's even true, but it's just like my cope for like my memory issues and not wanting to write notes I can't read. So, oh, next question. Is it okay to browse your phone in a theater if you are alone in the back row? So here's the thing. I have had my phone out in like 3 movies in the last like 5 or 6 years, I would say. When me and my friends Justin and Cyrus saw X in Dallas, Texas, we had our phones out the whole time. We were just also talking at the movie and shit, so I guess it was fair game. There's no Alamo employees around to stop us. And look, if you're in the back row and the light's not bothering anybody, you do you. I go to screenings where like a security person makes a speech about don't have your phone, and then people have their phones out, nothing happens to them. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely. I think it's a bit of a degradation of the culture, but at the same time, if you're not, it, the experience is, you dictate the experience. You dictate how big or momentous or not it is. So like if you are just going to see a movie on a matinee and you're bored and you look at your phone because the movie's boring, that's the decision you chose to make. You don't need to be, tarred and feathered. It happens. So wait, I said Chevalier. I had my phone out in X. Oh, I rewatched. At this point, I have no idea if this video is ever coming out. I'm sorry. I rewatched Dead Reckoning, Mission Impossible, and I took notes the whole time for that on my phone because it was a matinee, no one was around. I think it's okay. To me, if you don't mind being on your phone, as long as it's not affecting anybody else, like don't be physically on your phone. Don't take phone calls. But if you're just like texting or whatever, especially if like there's someone important that you need to keep an eye on or something or whatever, it's fine. It's okay. I know people are getting tired of how bad people are being at the theaters lately, but like I run one and we actually don't get that many complaints about this stuff. You know what I mean? Like when all the young people are there, they don't complain about other young people doing bad things. When the old people are by themselves and they're like taking phone calls and being rude or whatever, no one does. We only get problems when it's a mixed audience. The old people hate seeing the young people do it, but they do it too. This is actually kind of a funny one. Is cogently talking at length on your podcast natural to you, or does it take preparation? So this is my 5th pod, and we only have one question after this, so we're almost at the end of it. When I talk a lot. I mean, people in my real life know that I'm a very mouthy person. When I was a kid, I was an only child until I was like 11, and like we moved a lot, and like I was the only person in my family who was like, my mom had me, but none of her siblings had kids until I was like almost an adult. So when we were at family gatherings, I was the only person at my rung. There wasn't other kids for me to hang out with, so I spent a lot of time around adults from a very young age. And as a result, like I've always just not had difficulty talking to people. I get like I don't know, when you're like a kid and you're just around a bunch of grown-ups and like they almost start treating you like an equal because you can talk with them, like you pick stuff up that you maybe shouldn't. Uh as an adult, it's like I don't know, like if you get used to talking to a bunch of people 3 times your size when you're little, when you're grown, it's just like I can talk to anybody. So in real life, I have no difficulty talking to people, having conversations. I don't have much difficulty with like public speaking either. I mean, I did theater in high school. I've had jobs where I have to like speak in front of crowds and stuff, usually because like there's a mass of them and we're evacuating them and they won't listen unless I yell. So in general, the talking thing, I just kind of do that. That's not like weird for me. And if you guys watch the video, some of the videos I do are scripted to a degree. Like some of like the some parts are I've written out to get a clear thing. But a lot of this stuff in the middle, I'm just riffing. I just feel comfortable riffing for the most part. I just like I'm not great at it necessarily. Like since doing the pod, I've noticed like talking for like an hour without anyone to bounce off of is difficult. So I take notes. I have like a list of like what I'm going to talk about in order, so I don't get in the weeds, and I try to make sure that like if someone like this for the Q&A section, I like looked at these questions before I didn't. I'm not looking at them for the first time now. Like I picked which ones I was going to do and stuff. Uh, I don't have to. I don't feel like I have to prepare as much as is like for the first couple. I was like, I have to make sure I get like some caffeine or something so I can be like more alert. And then, but I have a caffeine problem that I'm trying to kick, so I can't really do that. Like tonight, no caffeine. I had not since this morning. I'm trying. I'm trying my best. So a lot of this is just like being prepared. I'll explain how I actually do the pod. I'm 5 episodes in. I'm trying to give away secrets. Is I like talking about stuff and I like talking to people, but I also I have a lot of friends and we all talk about movies and stuff all the time. But like a lot of times it's just through text, you know what I mean, or like DMs and stuff. So like I don't get on the phone with people that much. At my current job, I talk to people a lot, but I always feel like I'm the one talking too much. I have to remind myself to like get back to work, guys. Sorry, I had to go on that tangent about Larry Clark. Uh, I have a few friends who've moved, and they're like, we like the pod because it's like being in the office with you. It's like hanging out with you. This is what you're like. So I hope people can know that this isn't like a persona. This is just what I'm like, literally. If anything, probably like dialed down a bit. So no, I don't have to do anything special. I mean, I just treat, so like, I also, throughout, I mean, I started this channel before COVID, but most of the stuff I did on the channel came after. And being cooped up, a lot of this stuff was just me setting my phone up on a tripod, hitting record, and then just going, and then hoping I could edit into something, coherent. And I've done like 200 something videos, something like that. I don't know how many, a lot. And the more you do that, the more you just like get better at it. It's not like I'm some, whatever. It's just, I just did it a lot. And then you get used to it. And like, it's kind of why I've been trying to make sure I don't take too many breaks between videos. Because every time I've had a break, it does feel weird being on camera for a second. And I do have to cut out a lot of stammering and just like forgetting where I am. Not forgetting where I am. That makes me sound senile. But just I get in the weeds just talking about stuff if I don't have some kind of roadmap. I get on tangents. I get distracted or whatever. So I do have to have a little bit of something to like guide me, so I don't make it awful. Like this episode, the last couple episodes have gone a little longer than what I expected them to be, but I'm just trying to just go with however it feels and not go through and cut a bunch of stuff. Like I feel like it should just be a little more natural. But I also have to have a thing of being like, I had some other stuff that I just skipped this week because I was like, it's going to be too long. It's probably not going to be that funny or interesting. We'll just do it later. Not at all. But no, I'm able to kind of just do this, I guess. I don't know. I don't feel good at a lot of things. I have to be very honest about that. I don't feel like a very accomplished person. I don't feel proud of a lot of who I am as a human being. Just as I exist, I just always feel like I'm just here and I'm just doing stuff. And I don't know, I just kind of, I guess everyone feels that way at some point. But I do know I'm at least okay at talking a bunch. Like, I could talk about whatever for a long period of time. And I know that I know a lot about movies and I like them and I like talking about movies. So, like, uh, that's, it just kind of comes naturally to me, I guess. You know, I think I've said before that some of that comes from the fact that I've worked at a movie theater for like 14 years, different movie theaters over the course of 14 years. And when you're around other people that like movies, it's like kind of all you talk about. Like, some people talk about football and shit at work, like, you know, like normal people, but a lot of us, it's all we talk about is like, what'd you watch last night? Oh, I watched this. Oh, you should rewatch this. Okay, cool. Did you go see this? You know, it's just, it's cool. It's kind of cool. I had a period, the first theater I ever worked at, when I still worked there, I worked there for like 6 or 7 years. There was a period where the entire staff was basically like film nerds. Like, everyone would have to like trade shifts in order to have time to go work on their short films and stuff. Everyone was like, there were no normies. It was just diehard fucking film nerds, and a variety. You know, you had people who like different types of things, and like, you had some people who were just kind of like your basic film bros. You had some people who were like really into avant-garde stuff, and it was it was a really cool cross pollination, and I really missed that period. Um, Nowadays, most of my employees are either like a lot older and not that they don't care about the movies that much, or they're very young and they care about movies in a very weird way that I don't know how to relate to. But I like talking about movies. I'll talk to anybody about movies. I also don't have customers that like talking about movies very much with me anymore. Most of them are, like I said, young, and I look weird talking to some teenager. Wouldn't do that. Or they're older and they just like, you know, want to complain to me about something. So whenever I give people my honest opinions, I'll give a very brief anecdote. We're almost done with this episode. I had a thing that happened to me at work. This is like last year. This racist lady, I discovered through the course of this interaction that she was racist. Uh, Someone called me over and they're like, Dom, we have a lady who wants to talk to a manager. And I was like, okay, what happened? Is she mad about something? Like, no. She wants a recommendation. And I was like, what do you mean? We have a little binder that has like this, like the synopsis of every movie. I was like, you know, these are what the movie's about. Pick one. I don't know what to tell you. And I came over and they're like, well, no, she asked another one of our employees. I'm not going to name these people. But he isn't a big movie guy. He's a weeb, so he doesn't understand about anything about independent film. But she didn't feel like he was confident enough in his recommendation, so she wanted to talk to someone who knows movies, and everyone's like, oh, well, Dom does, just go get him. And I'm like, okay, this is not very important, but I'm doing it because, you know, this is part of the job. And I wanted to help this lady, and I went through the binder, and I was like explaining, I'd seen all the movies at the time, so I knew all of them, and I was like going one by one, and she turned a page in the binder, and we were playing The Woman King, and she was like, I don't want to see that, and like turned the page as if it was like child pornography or something. And I was like, wow, okay, I wonder what your issue with The Woman King is. Because in the same breath, she really liked another, I don't know what movie it was at the time. There's another like violent movie. So I'm like, you don't have a problem with this, but just that one? Okay, I see you. The only thing that fit for her that was like safe enough was we had this movie, See How They Run, which is like a whodunit, kind of a charming Wes Anderson adjacent whodunit or something with Sam Rockwell. And I reviewed it for Looper, I think, when it came out, if I'm not mistaken. So you guys can look up that review or whatever. That was a nice movie. That was charming. And I was like, oh, pretty decent movie. I think you dig it. It's harmless. I feel like this woman needed something that was not going to challenge her. After she wasted my time explaining all these movies to her, and she was thinking about that one, she was like, well, let's see what Rotten Tomatoes says. In a way, what she meant was like, the kid wasn't enough of an authority, so we got you, and you're not enough of an authority, so Rotten Tomatoes is. And it took so much to me not to be like, ma'am, can you scroll slightly lower on that page? You will literally see my fucking face, because I wrote that a review of that movie, and that was one of the main positive ones or whatever. And God, it just drove me fucking crazy that I was just like, you said you wanted to talk to a real person, you talked to a real person, now you want an aggregate? Like, come on. Yeah, that was a tangent. Anyway, that lady was a huge asshole. She was so fucking mean. She dropped her. I'm not going to go into the rest of the story, but she was really rude. And everyone that watched the thing was like, Dom, how'd you do that? I'm like, I have a high threshold for taking shit from people, which is probably a bad thing at this point in my life. Yeah, Tony, thanks for those questions. Those are all really good. And I actually like talking about that stuff, so thank you. Final question, all along similar lines. Channel Not Found asks, what writing advice would you give to up-and-coming film critics? This is actually kind of cool. I have, like, I don't know what to tell young film critics, to be honest. So I don't know how they break in at this point. The industry's so weird. There's not a lot of so here's my brief short my history of becoming a film critic. Around 2013, I was doing nothing with my life. I don't remember 2013 very well. And a friend of mine, Max Robinson, hit me up and he was like, "Hey, me and some friends from like college and stuff have this like website called deadshirt.net. We talk about popular culture. We're looking for writers." I had done some stuff for my friend Luke Hare's site, Nerd Scenarios, one of Luke's mini ventures. Luke was a very one of the most like prolific and like dedicated, like hard driven people I've ever met. But I'd done some stuff at his site at the time, and they were like, "We'd like you to do a review or something." And I started doing reviews with them about comics, movies, music, whatever, anything. And the only thing I really had over everyone, I've maintained really good friendships with all the people from Dead Shirt, and they're all really great people. But I think that I felt like I was always told like, "Oh, you're a really good writer," but a lot of it was just I just wrote fast and more. That was it. I always was willing to write about something because I just liked doing it, and I was trying to get better. And I did some stuff at Dead Shirt, and I got really lucky that Brandon Soderbergh, who's like a local journalist in Baltimore, he co-wrote a book called "I Got a Monster." This really impressive book about like police brutality and fucked up shit in Baltimore. Brandon, if I'm not mistaken, I think Brandon said his girlfriend like followed me on Tumblr and liked some of the stuff that I'd like shared there. And he asked if I wanted to start doing some film reviews for Baltimore City Paper because he did a lot of the reviews himself, even though he was like the editor. But it was like there weren't very many screenings for things in Baltimore, which is still a problem. So usually they expect Baltimore writers to go to DC. I already live near DC, so it made more sense for me. So he hired me to write a review of Exodus: Gods and Kings, the Ridley Scott movie. That's just the Prince of Egypt, but fucking awful. And that was my first time ever being paid to write a movie review. And then from there, once I realized that was a thing that could happen, that someone could pay me to do it, I was like, yo. So I continued doing stuff at Dead Shirt up until basically like when they went defunct. Everyone from Dead Shirt's gonna have to do so many other cool things. Like I love all those people, man. But I wrote at Spectrum Culture for a little bit, which is like I wasn't getting paid there, but it was a lot of writers I liked were there, and there was a local editor who worked at a site called DCist around here, and he was one of the editors at Spectrum, and I wanted him to notice me. So I started writing at Spectrum, for free or whatever, but Spectrum took being a film critic so seriously, and it was like I didn't get to pick the movies I reviewed for the first like few months. Edits were ruthless. I was so used to either being editing myself or being edited by like my peers, and we were all kind of like not soft on each other, but just like there's a difference between like your pal checking your fucking Mad Max review for like grammar errors versus like in this case Pat Padua. If you guys, I don't know if anyone knows him, he writes for the Post sometimes. He's been writing film reviews in public for decades, and he has so much experience. And he just shaped me so much. The first few times he edited me, I was just like, this guy fucking hates me. He thinks I suck. I should just quit. But no, he saw something in me and really wanted to push me and make me better. And I was very lucky for that. I was the biggest thing I think I would try to tell a young film critic if they're trying to get on is like, hopefully you can find an editor who's cool. Like maybe when you start out, I don't want to say do things for free, but you're not going to get paid at first. Like it's just so hard to get to the part where you get paid. If you're gonna not get paid though, hopefully you're writing for a place that is gonna get your name out there, make you like be seen, and make you be seen with a little bit of legitimacy with your byline, and then also have an editor who is going to help you. Because like if you're not getting paid with money, people talk about being paid in exposure. That's dumb, but being paid in experience can be good. And like the things that Pat taught me and the ways he made me a better writer. And I'm a little ashamed. I feel like I've kind of like backslid in the last couple of years, maybe because so much of my stuff is just me by myself and I don't have an editor anymore. But he taught me so much. And I went from doing stuff at Spectrum to writing at DC's, doing film reviews there, but then other stuff. I'd go review plays. I would go to art galleries and write about art, like anything for the art section. And I wrote a lot of stuff I was really proud of there, actually. I had a lot of fun, and I got to go to cool things. And I at some point I just figured out that okay, I can write about music, I write all these different things, but movies are the one thing I think I'm the best at. So I just hyper focused on that, and I've just been in that ever since. Through different places and stuff, but like really, if you live someplace that has like an alt weekly or something, there's not a lot of them left, but that's a great place to start. I really just, I guess I just want to say, I really, really owe a lot of this to Padua, and Brandon specifically. I feel like they both really nurtured me a lot. Were really kind to me. Were really, really patient and really inspiring and stuff, and like would encourage me in ways that made me think that like it was something that was worth to keep doing. So if you're a young film critic, I would say, I don't know, maybe get a Substack or something. Do something to where your writing exists on your own that you control, and then try to use that to get as samples to write someplace that exists, someplace that is a website that people go to. Hopefully you'll find out that there's like an editor there who's cool or likable or something who can actually help you and not just like, do nothing. And then once you start writing for one of those places and you get a couple, you get enough bylines to feel comfortable, you can start pitching elsewhere. You know what I mean? But there's lots of different pop culture sites that are always looking for freelancers. Everything you're going to be doing is probably going to be freelance. You're not going to like it. I don't know that someone's going to hire you to be the film critic. I sort of had that sort of set up at the Baltimore Beat. It's like one of the coolest things I've ever had, feeling like this entire publication, I am the movie guy. It makes me feel so like special. Like, I don't know, it sounds weird, but like, you know, I don't know that I'm ever going to get to the point that I'm like writing at the Post or something, the New York Times or anything like that. And I spend a lot of time at screenings around critics who are way higher up than me and have more experience and done all these things. And I don't know that I'm ever going to stick with it enough to get to that point. I don't know. I really don't know. But if you care about movies and you want to write about them, I would say, try to write some stuff. Try to get it out there. Try to get it in front of the right people. Develop your own voice. Have your own opinions. That's the biggest thing. You're always going to be feeling like, I didn't like this, but everyone else liked this. Was I wrong? No. If you didn't fucking like it, you didn't fucking like it. If you liked it, everyone else hated it, you liked it. Fuck it, I've had to give some advice to a handful of people before. I don't think that I'm a person people need to come to for advice, but the one thing I say to people that I'm really, really strongly a believer in is like, you need to learn to trust yourself. You need to learn to trust your feelings and your reactions to what you watch. It's not always about the plot. It's not always about thumbs up or thumbs down. Like, what did it make you feel? What did you think they wanted to do? What do you think this is about? What do you think people are going to get out of it? You know what I mean? Don't just be like a thumbs up, should you go see it or not person if you can avoid it. Like, try to find meaning, try to find something in it for yourself, try to find something in it for your readers, your viewers, whatever you're going to do. Just be as authentic as you can. Trust yourself. That's probably the hardest part of being a film critic. I can't tell you how many times I've been like finishing a review and maybe it's going to go up a little bit after the embargo, so all the other reviews come out, and then I take a look at them and I'm like, oh fuck, am I the only one that like this movie? Fuck, you know what I mean? Like, there's you get this weird thing about, am I not part of this? Like, did I miss it? Am I dumb because I like this? Am I dumb because I didn't like it because I didn't get it? Stuff like that. And like, I've been quote unquote wrong about movies before, or I've been like, hung out to dry on my own opinions, but they were mine, and I stuck by them. And my opinions change over time on movies too. You know what I mean? You're not passing judgment once forever. You might watch that movie again and feel something completely differently. So that's my big thing. Trust yourself, develop your voice, and don't let anybody try to make you something you're not. Not that that's ever really happened to me, I guess, but like, that's a little bit. But, just make sure you stay intact. If people are reading film reviews, an authentic voice, I think, is a more important thing than some things that people worry about. So thank you, gentlemen. I found this was a really good question. And also, I don't know, like, if anyone ever does want advice or specific advice or something, you can hit me up. You guys can be in my IG DMs. I don't care. Ask me anything. I'll do whatever. I'm around. So that's it. That's everything we have. That was the last question. Thank you for listening this week. This episode is longer than any episode we've done so far. Whoops. Probably, I think this is the limit. I think we're never going to go over 90 again. But we did it for Billy. That's the most important thing. So Thank you again. If you were watching this on YouTube, you know the drill. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, subscribe. If you really loved it, hit the little bell icon so you get notifications when I put out new videos. If you're not watching this on YouTube and you didn't see all my hand gesticulating just now, leave me a review on wherever you're listening to the pod. Thank you for listening to the pod. I like saying the pod. Thank you for supporting the pod. And I love you guys. I love all you guys. Like, thank you so much for being a part of this. Like, the fact that any number of people like listening to this every week is like huge for me right now. And I just appreciate you guys. I look forward to recording it, releasing it, and everything else. Yeah. Okay. We gotta go. We really gotta go. I'm tired. Thank you again. I will see you guys all soon. Again, soon. Bye.